Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. And today, we're going to be looking at a classic character from one of the greatest science fantasy fiction films out there, the franchise of Star Wars' main attraction, Darth Vader. Now, you might be asking yourself, how on earth can you take a sci-fi character from a space opera and put them in D&D? Well, it's a little easier than you might think. It turns out that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there is actually a spot that talks about how to apply futuristic weapons to D&D. Now, the weapons in the book are specifically referring to things like laser rifles and antimatter rifles and things of that nature. But with just a tiny little bit of adjustment, we can make everything we need in the game to make Darth Vader a reality. So let's have a look at how you would take the normal mechanics of D&D and turn it into this Sith Lord. So Darth Vader is about 40 years old, and in his Darth Vader form, he is 6'2", weighs about 200 pounds. His eyes are a yellowish color with the pale white skin and the black hair, known for the ex-Anakin Skywalker. Now, he has an acolyte background since he spent more time studying in the Jedi Temple than he did as a slave on Tatooine, so I gave him the acolyte background. He is human, so that's easy to talk about. And he does have a lawful evil alignment, following the code of the Sith quite strictly. But what kind of class would he be? See, he's a heavily armored, magic-using, if you consider the Force magic anyway, combatant that goes into melee combat a lot. He's a paladin. But what kind of paladin? I'd say a vengeance paladin. He seeks to gain vengeance over the Jedi for the supposed betrayal and loss of Padme, so I thought vengeance paladin was sufficient. And several of the spells that paladins get at their highest levels are things Darth Vader is shown to do. I made him a level 17 vengeance paladin. Now, as far as his stats go, his strength is supernatural. He uses the Force to do outstanding things, lifting and heavy weights, pushing starships around. I gave him a strength of 24. Very, very above the normal that you'd expect for a D&D character. But he's a little slow. He is capable of jumping and doing some speedy things with the Force, but I gave him a dex of 12. His constitution is 20. Anakin Skywalker survived being in lava, and Darth Vader's pretty dang tough, so constitution of 20 is acceptable in that case. He's reasonably smart, with an intelligence of 16, being trained by the Jedi for so long. His wisdom is 12, though. He's easily manipulated by the Emperor and is a little blinded, so unless he is making battle strategies, he's not super wise. He's also incredibly intimidating. His charisma I put at 18, because charisma is not just charm, it also is intimidation and control over others. As a paladin, his saving throws are wisdom and charisma. His skill proficiencies, he's proficient in arcana, athletics, deception, insight, and religion, and he has expertise in intimidation, thanks to one of his feats that we'll go over in a bit. He has a hit point maximum of 190, a speed of 30, and he has a lot of the common paladin proficiencies. Proficient in all armor, all weapons, no tools to speak of, and he speaks common, and then I gave him celestial, infernal, and abyssal. The idea that he was trained by both light and dark forces means that in a D&D world, you would say he can speak to both creatures of the light and the darkness. So I felt like those languages were appropriate. What about his armor? His classic dark Mandalorian armor, well, his Sith armor made of Mandalorian iron. I figured that A good way to put this would be just to simply say that he has +3 plate. So I gave him that. His armor class sits at 22, thanks to a couple other feats that he's got. But he's very hard to hit. And then there's his classic weapon, the lightsaber. Now, like I said earlier, D&D does provide an out for futuristic weapons that do radiant damage, and in the case of plasma or laser weapons or swords in this case, it makes sense that radiant damage would be what they would do. But the lightsaber is an incredibly potent weapon, capable of cutting through stone, steel, and basically anything as necessary. Even the Mandalorian armor, which is resistant to it, will eventually succumb to it if you hit it in the right spot. Therefore, giving the lightsaber a standard +3 seemed underwhelming to me. So I broke the game a little bit, and I made a lightsaber a +5 longsword. The idea that a +5 weapon exists is broken in and of itself, but these are lightsabers we're talking about. Also, the lightsaber does a standard of 3d8 radiant damage per hit. It also is very light. I gave it the finesse and versatile features. Versatile meaning you can wield it with 2 hands if you want for extra damage, and finesse meaning you can use your dex instead of your strength, although in Vader's case, he's much stronger than he is fast, so he will be leaning into his strength a lot. This means that a lightsaber hits with his strength, proficiency, and the +5 of the lightsaber, he has an attack bonus of +18. He doesn't miss very much with this thing. And the damage is 3d8 +12 as he wields it. Now for his features. He has the standard Paladin stuff. Divine Sense, Lay on Hands. He does get a fighting style. I gave him the defense style, which is why his AC is 22. He also knows Divine Smite, has the Divine Health, immunity to poison. He has the standard channel divinities of the Vengeance Paladin, Abjure Enemy and Vow of Enmity. When he sets his sight on you, he does not let up. He gets extra attack. He has his Aura of Protection and Aura of Courage powers, giving his saving throws a buff. And he has the Relentless Avenger power that Vengeance Paladins have, as well as the Soul of Vengeance, just making it so that he's very, very difficult to escape when he has his sights set on you. The improved Divine Smite and the Cleansing Touch are also things, because the Force can be used to heal, although he's not shown to do it very often. And then his extra feats. I gave him the telekinetic feats, which makes sense, because he has the Force, as well as telepathic, since he has the ability to talk to people telepathically. He has the defensive duelist feat. This means that when he wields the lightsaber, he can use his reaction to increase his armor class dramatically, by his proficiency bonus, in fact, up to 28. Meaning that when he is in a defensive stance with his lightsaber, he can block stuff. This is how he would block, stuff from blasters and stuff like that. He also has the Heavy Armor Master feat, meaning that the armor the attacks he is hit with when he wears his Mandalorian armor get chipped away quite a bit. He also has the Mage Slayer feat. As a Jedi hunter, he would be an expert in stopping people from using the Force or using other magics to fight him. And I also gave him Skill Expert as his final feat, since he is a human. That's how he got proficiency and expertise in Intimidation. But what about his Force powers? Obviously we mentioned telekinetic, but he's got to have more magic as a Paladin. So what you're about to hear is a list of spells that I believe that really sell themselves as things you can imagine a Force user doing. But there's one key thing we have to discuss here. Paladins typically use their charisma as their spellcasting modifier, which would make sense if you were a normal spellcaster. But these are Sith we're talking about. The Sith channel their Force through their rage and their emotions. And there's something about a charisma caster that doesn't quite add up there. Especially since I gave him the super strength that he uses the Force to enhance. So one of the major changes I made to the Paladin spellcasting is that as the Sith, I made his spellcasting ability strength. That's something no other class does, but it means that all of that physical rage that he can manifest actually is how he uses magic. He uses his body's anger, in this case, his super strength, and that's what lets him cast his spells. And all these spells are things that make sense from the perspective of the Force in Star Wars. At level 1 spells, he has Bane, Hunter's Mark, Command, think about that one, Detect Evil and Good, Detect Magic, Protection from Evil and Good, Thunderous Smite, and Wrathful Smite. It all starts to add up when you think about the evil and good and the command powers when it comes to detecting other Jedi and Sith and using your mind powers over the weak-willed. Then he gets Hold Person, as well as Misty Step, Branding Smite, and Zone of Truth, detecting whether others are lying, something the Force can also do. Level 3, he has Haste. Think about powering yourself up with the Force to make yourself faster and attack more. Protection from Energy and Blinding Smite. At level 4, he has Banishment, Dimension Door, as well as Death Ward and Locate Creature. And finally, at level 5, he has Hold Monster, Scrying, telling the future or detecting others with the Force, Banishing Smite, Circle of Power, Destructive Wave, and Dispel Evil and Good. These are things that all add up to this, like, really, really evil and good sensing, Force user, magic user in this case. A lot of smites, because he's a paladin, and plenty of defensive spells and mind-reading spells and paralyzing spells. It all kind of makes sense when you think about it in the terms of Darth Vader. And that's it. That is Darth Vader as a character in D&D. Level 17 Vengeance Paladin. Now, obviously, you have to take a little bit of artistic liberty with him, and it makes sense when you kind of squint a little bit. And using strength as a spellcasting modifier is not something D&D ever does, but it's something that I believe makes the most sense with this Dark Sith Lord. Having him as a villain in your campaign, having him be the leader of a criminal organization or even an evil king, really makes the campaign seem terrifying, because how on earth are you going to face against a Sith Lord with a laser sword and magical armor? It really would make for an awesome campaign. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes open for more character creation videos coming soon. Have a good one, my friends.